mindful of your body language. So this is not a lounge, right? So you want to be sitting up, being attentive. We're going to make a mental shift from things that could be helpful to our bodies to things that are corrupting our minds. Please welcome Silas Pearson.
All right, so again, my name is Silas Pearson, and today I'm going to be telling you about promoting important protective practices, the effects of neuromarketing on teens and adolescents. So before we begin today, I'd like to ask you a question. What does every single one of you listening today have in common with each other? Although that you are diverse and different in a million different ways, everybody has a common factor, that being a childhood. So, there's not a person who's not been a child and gone through a process of growing up. Some doing more growing than others. Admittedly, I'd like to thank my Capstone teacher, Mr. Langmay, today, class of 1980. You see, childhood is an important and mandatory part of life. It presents an infinite amount of struggles for people across the globe. For the children in the United States, one of these struggles is being targeted for monetary gain. As time continues to pass, people are being shown the newest, shiniest, and most advanced products they could imagine. This happens even when people think that they're alone and have the privacy to not be reached by companies and salesmen. It's designed to be this way. This is the wide world of marketing and advertising. It's a system thoughtfully crafted to make the greatest impact on people who could be potential customers. But it is not a system of innocent of darker uses, nor does it ever take a break. How or where does a company like Disney or its conglomerates make its largest profit? There's been one money-making goldmine for as long as selling things has been a profession, that being children. Not only do they need children to keep the heavy income flowing, but they know exactly how to keep the little ones coming back for more and more for years to come, and in turn, their parents. Children must be protected. As more and more parents and guardians realize that their children are at risk of being used to make money and promote agendas, the level of action also must be raised. Doctor of Adolescent Psychiatry and Professor of Psychology from the University of California, San Francisco, Caitlin R. Costello, wrote about the lack of cognitive ability in adolescents under the age of 18 and the large amounts of personal information they freely give away to dangerous sources over the internet and advertising teams from around the world. She said, quote, "Adolescents under the age of 18 are not recognized in the law as adults, nor do they have the fully developed capacity of adults. Yet teens regularly enter into contractual arrangements with operators of websites and send and post information about themselves. Their level of development limits their capacity to understand the implications of online communications. Yet the risks are real to adolescents, privacy and reputations," end quote. There are three pillars to this problem and its solutions, those being the need for stronger restrictions on children's access to harmful material, understanding children's understanding of monetary responsibility, and keeping people connected to people, not screens. For example, on websites such as YouTube and its parent company Google, there are legal restrictions stating that a child under the age of 13 cannot create an account. This is done with a click of a button and no true way of knowing whether it's the truth or not. These are not sufficient actions to keep our children's private information safe. I hope not to ruin any kid's fun. However, as a wake-up call to parents, as well to other teens, you must know that you are never really anonymous on the internet, and there's nothing on that computer worth putting yourself at risk for. Staying educated on these risks as an adolescent and proactively combating them as parents is how we solve this issue together. It is the most important protective practice needing to be promoted. According to a study done by Sharon Beater, a professor in the Faculty of Arts at the University of Wollongong in New South Wales, Australia, she discussed the financial lengths which large corporations have taken. It speaks on the abundant yet wrongfully placed confidence in today's youth and how despite their media and technological advances, they're not safe from manipulation of their wallets. Thus, the question must be raised. How could powerful billion-dollar companies be stopped from targeting someone's kids? Some would say, we'll remove these brands from our household. However, the goal of protection is not to take away things that may have the chance to help a child or adolescent in their journey of growing up, but bringing awareness to the fact that this is the reality of the times. That can be the most realistic defense. These tactics are not characteristics held by one or two big name brands. It is everywhere. Although boycotting companies such as Disney, McDonald's, or Nike, and bringing to the light the way they target children ranging anywhere from 2 to 17 years old would certainly create a barrier for marketing firms, the most effective route would be to limit children's exposure to the flood of social media and technological advances towards them, specifically in the harmful use of smartphones and social media to guide children in the way in which they spend their own and their parents' money. Children are the most vulnerable in society, and the masses agree that they must be protected. Now, it is time to put in the effort to accomplish this goal, even if that means not sitting the child or yourself in front of a screen for hours at a time. In fact, a study done by Common Sense Media in 2017, which was then covered by NPR.org, states that, quote, 42% of parents say the TV is on always or most of the time in their home, whether anyone is watching or not. Research has shown this so-called background TV reduces parent-to-child interaction, which in turn can hurt language development in young children, or just basic relationship crafting in older ones. As well as media use being found to be in 98% of homes with children 8 years old and under, where the child has a mobile device, such as a tablet or smartphone, of their own. Tom Beauchamp, who is an American philosopher who specialized in the work of David Hume, moral philosophy, bioethics, and animal ethics while working as a professor of philosophy at Georgetown University in the Kennedy Institute of Ethics, believe that we must work to protect from the liberty-based wrongs which can be committed in advertising. The human's ability to think freely is one of the great conflicts which philosophers have been facing for over a millennia. The conflict for today's questionnaires is whether or not those selling advertisements are taking away a customer's freedom of thought. Heavily branded companies can be a harmful aspect of people's day-to-day lives, even adults. These companies work very hard to force themselves into the fabric of essential aspects of life, such as the food eaten, the clothes worn, the vehicles driven, and even the furniture bought. A quote by Edward Bernays, one of the world's most well-known social psychologists of the 20th century, encapsulates this quite brilliantly. Quote, "The conscious and the intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds molded, our tastes formed, and our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. It is they who pull the wires that control the public mind," end quote. On the surface level, what's the big deal? So what if a shirt has XYZ logo on it? The big deal and concern arise when a child who doesn't know their ABCs can recognize a cartoon character better than their own family members. Or when a man who can barely afford rent is shelling out for those shoes he's just got to have. The American Psychological Association explains how young people face immense levels of peer pressure and ridicule when not conforming to the new fad sweeping the nation. The APA have also done studies to research how companies may be abusing the social jungle which our young people now navigate, that I and my peers navigate. We know that this behavior as well as its effects do not stop with age. In fact, companies count on it. This being shown through a study by Monitor on Psychology in 2004. There's nothing wrong with advertising, but when there's an intentional effort to guide people, children, subliminally, there may be an issue with a company's ethics department. Big corporations have mastered the art of gaining the trust of customers and getting to know them better than they know themselves. How many people in the United States have an Apple product, or any electronic device that has given them something to read called a privacy and security form that is approximately 100 pages of size 2 font? How many people have accepted those terms of agreement without reading the form? This is a reality created and tolerated by almost everyone in this room, school, town, state, country. Almost everyone is guilty of giving a little too much information when it may not be appropriate, sometimes when it can be dangerous. I can almost guarantee no one knows what they agree to. The first step is finding and understanding what these companies are after when reaching out to someone, especially the young and impressionable. A company's first job is to seek money. They want it, they want you to spend it, and they will do almost anything to make that come true. As young children grow up in a world that is becoming more and more technologically advanced, children need to understand the value of a dollar, understanding that money doesn't grow on trees. As every person has been small and young once, they can look back on their life and think of a time where they wanted something so badly they may have thrown a little bit of a tantrum in the aisle of a store. Or parents can remember when they were faced with the terrifying reality of a screaming toddler and the many withering stares from those who pass by. As time goes on, people forget what is going through the mind of their little one and are only focused on getting the crying to stop. A stern warning and threat of timeout never hurt anyone, but the point is that young people don't see money as something made in exchange for time or work. It's simply there. This is why advertising can be so dangerous. It creates a sense of security for a child and tells them it's only $29.99. A child doesn't understand that it would take 3 hours of work to pay for that, using a standard minimum wage as an example. Big companies want money and want people to spend it on their products. They spend lots of time learning how kids think and thrive on their ignorance of subjects such as finances. Teaching children the value of a dollar is one of the first and most important steps in guarding against needless spending and corporate tricks. The second most important point to this problem is dependency. Just as children have not learned the value of a dollar, they do not understand the difference between a friend suggesting them a toy they might like and a company trying to sell them something at all cost. As previously stated, children are the most vulnerable, and families have been put in a very tough position. Children are gaining access to the internet at ages getting younger and younger, which is a safety hazard in itself due to their access to dangerous material, but less apparent is the dangers of personalized, targeted advertisements going straight to children's hands. What would happen if it was found out that this has been known for a very long time and continued despite the ethical questions raised? Scientists have found that both parents looking out for their children, as well as individuals without children, should focus on how much time they put into their media and let into their lives. Companies know very well that old habits die hard. They know that humans can create strong emotional bonds with objects and ideas, not just other people. I'm going to guess that almost anyone here remembers the phrase, "just do it." That may be because you see it almost everywhere. It also may be because you're a big fan of Nike. If so, why are you a fan of Nike? Corporations like that you're a fan. They know that people are dependent on their product to fill that craving. They know that people need their product because they've spent decades drilling that into their heads with commercials and jingles. According to Susan Lin, a psychologist from the Harvard Medical School, quote, in the United States, corporations spend close to $15 billion annually on influencing the spending of children, a spending purse of $600 billion. Sharon Beater, a professor of psychology in Australia, had this to say on the topic. Quote, advertising exploits individual insecurities, creates false needs and offers counterfeit solutions. It fosters dissatisfaction that leads to consumption. Children are particularly vulnerable to this sort of manipulation, end quote. She explains that there are bigger problems than strictly financial, but on a health and psychological level as well. People, children especially, are dependent on normalcy, status quo, fitting in. Millions of children around the world open their smartphones and log into Instagram. They are immediately swarmed by people flaunting the best of their lives, not reality. Large businesses see this as their golden ticket into the chocolate factory. They know that in a matter of seconds, a person can become a customer for life. There are 3 levels to this industry. There are the Wonkas, who run the show behind the curtain and fill their pockets. There are the Oompa Loompas, who work 24/7 and get those products shelf-ready, and in this case, post-ready. And there are the Augustus Gloops, who have become comfortable in their complacency. Their slothfulness and conformity have overtaken their lives and wallets. These are those who need that sweet chocolate to survive in their bubble. This bubble is the entirety of their social and mental state. The part that they all forget is that a bubble will always pop. I hope all of the Gene Wilder fans appreciated that metaphor. As young people who have grown into the digital age and look back at their childhoods, most will have had a time where a little bit of innocence was lost, where despite gaining some information that led them to where they are today, a part of who they were drifted away. all thanks to companies such as Facebook and Google. As the relatives of the current generation and the parents of the next generation, these same young people have a responsibility to protect and defend the future from making similar mistakes that they may have made. This generation and the next must move forward in compassion and human decency, human interaction, not falling behind a screen, not being sold what is said to be necessary to be happy. The art of marketing is amazingly intricate and fitted to form. Business as a whole holds these attributes, but valuing safety and security should be the overarching goal more than getting enough likes on a picture of the beach or a new outfit. Waking up is the next step to a new day. So let's wake up from the trance put on us by big marketing. We must wake up and be better for the future's sake. With it being remembered that marketing itself is not evil, nor is capitalism or the desire to be fiscally successful. Researchers at the Behavioral Science Institute conducted a study in 2016 on children's ability to defend themselves against the future advances from companies. They gave the children aged 8 to 10 a warning before the experiment, explaining that it was an advertisement attempting to sell something. The children were then much more skeptical than before the warning. The problem arose when experimenting with the same kids after some time, and they found that without a warning prior to viewing, they showed no sign of defense. Children are not stupid. They will understand what they are told. However, they lack the real-world experience and knowledge to be left alone with somebody trying to sell them something. A keen eye must be kept on them, for no benefit other than the children's safety and peace of mind for parents who have entrusted their children with an open door to the wide world of very messy situations and people. How would someone from the other side view these words and claims? There are two sides to every coin, every story. Someone working in marketing would explain that they are within every law and would do nothing to manipulate a child, or anyone for that matter. People must simply check the fine print. As far as the desire to make money is concerned, doesn't everyone want money? Why should someone who makes things look desirable be criticized for doing their job? Marketing something desired to the people. Have these psychologists simply misunderstood that it is not manipulating a child, but simply a child wanting something, and there's nothing criminal about that? The key is dependency. Is it wrong to create a relationship with the people who are patrons of a business? For those who run large companies simply want to create the best experience for those people that want to enjoy their service. Why have they been portrayed as cold suits trying to squeeze the public for profit? Is it the corporation's fault people love their products, or that children are coming to them through social media? The big marketing executives will explain that they will put a warning online. They have no control if a child breaks the rules unbeknownst to them. They explain that the customers have made a decision to receive advertisements. Companies only personalize things to bring the best experience to their patrons. The one thing agreed upon by both big marketing and their protesters is that parents must make the final decision on whether a child has access or not. The popular phrase is, do not blame the son for the sin of the father. In this scenario, it is, do not blame the business for the decision of the parent. As situations like these become more prevalent, the farther society falls into the world of technology and advanced marketing, the more people's privacy and ability to make decisions for themselves drifts. Marketing is a beautiful art designed to get people to view a product or service as the best possible option. This can be used in negative ways, even unethical, but the use of it should not be labeled as a risk to life. There may need to be tighter restrictions on how much a company brings in or how they receive that information. However, the blame cannot be put on these companies in full. The citizens, specifically parents, have their responsibilities as well. Parents need to step up to the plate and go to bat for their children, as well as those teens watching for their own backs. They must keep them protected, not sheltered completely, nor left out to the wolves. Children don't need to be completely removed from the outside world, but kept safe from the dangers which are reaching through that open door called the internet. An aspect of this is companies wanting to use them for profit. While mass marketing through media is nothing new, the outputs used have been ever evolving. Over the last century, it's been ever evolving over the last century and should be recognized at all times. Customers, or more commonly referred to as the public, are being shown the newest, shiniest, and most advanced products they could imagine. This happens even when you think that you're all alone and cannot be reached. It's designed to be this way. Although boycotting companies such as Disney and bringing their actions to light, exposing how they target children ranging anywhere from 2 to 17 years old, would certainly create a barrier for marketing firms, the most effective route would be parents limiting their children's exposure to the flood of social media and technological advances towards them. Marketing will never end. Manipulating people with psychological tricks will never end. But common sense, learning the game, and simply watching over children's activity are steps to combat it. It can and will teach a teen or adolescent an important lesson without the troubling consequences, as well as bring parents the much-needed peace of mind. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Syria. So for a very long time, there have been laws put in place and lawsuits in some cases where on the box it will say the action figure really chops or it really does this or whatnot. And there's been a lot of problems with people claiming false advertising because, oh, the toy can't actually break through a board. So I understand that, and I would say I think in some cases that has definitely been used as a marketing ploy to sell somebody something. But once again, there are those fine print moments where they go, or they'll say, you know, use your common sense, it doesn't actually do this. So yes, it can definitely be used in that way.
Other questions? I got several, but I'll start with this one. So subliminal advertising has been against the law for a long time in movie theaters, particularly because it does the kind of manipulative thing under our radar, our conscious radar that you're talking about. Why aren't there laws for the ads that they have on social media or on television, like they had for subliminal advertising?
Yeah, so technically they do. The only problem is, as I said in my presentation, is that companies will put a restriction saying you have to be X amount of age to create an account and be on the platform. The problem is that in a lot of cases, parents or guardians will give a child a device that they can then use without checks and balances being made sure that they're not doing things that they shouldn't. And so in a lot of cases, there are many young children that will then create an account, even though it's against the rules. And with that, it's really an open door because these companies make money off of advertisements, and the government can't necessarily say you're not allowed to have any ads because of that risk. So my solution would just be very vigilant parenting when it comes to the internet, as well as for older teens such as you all. Just being aware that this is a reality should help you defend against possibly being manipulated in your spending. Sergey. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there is anything morally or ethically wrong with a child making YouTube videos. It's really just a safety aspect of saying that's a 12-year-old that now has access to anything on YouTube, but also people having access to the child, which creates a lot of safety risks. For instances, I mean, catfishing has been a thing for a very long time, and it's very dangerous to have somebody being able to contact a child through an Instagram message or a YouTube comment.
Any questions? So I'll give you this one. So this is really powerful stuff, and actually there are some limits on it, so that it's not, so we're somewhat protected. But I'm not sure if what is more dangerous is what we're being led to buy, like that they're after our money, or that we're losing our freedom of thought. Because this same technology, this same knowledge can be used for good and make us behave well and bring world peace. What do you think about that?
I think that they both kind of dovetail together in that there's the societal or economic problem with being manipulated to spend money, but there is definitely the societal aspect of saying these are children that don't have the ability to think freely necessarily for themselves or to understand what's really going on, and when that is being taken away at such an early age, it can really, more so than just a company trying to sell something, but also people trying to sell ideas. People can spread agendas and ideas that may be harmful, and when they're so young, it can really create a lot of problems.
So I think I'll just follow up on that. So early on in my teaching career, somebody told me that one definition of teaching is legalized brainwashing, except that it's legalized brainwashing for the good. Could there be a similar kind of view of marketing?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think those are some checks and balances that should be made with a company, making sure that everything that they're doing is ethical and as little manipulation as possible. And I do think that there is definitely a correlation between the two.
Time for one more question.
Right there? Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of marketing. That's what I'm going to school for. So not to make it all look bad and evil, but yeah. So some really good uses would be for bringing awareness to different things, as well as I think that there's ways that you can advertise to kids in a really good way, where if it's a good cause, people use back to school stuff like all that. So I'm not against marketing to children, but I think that there are definitely darker uses for it that should be checked.
That's all the time we've got.
Thank you so much.